Hello and welcome to the next episode of Inspiring Technology Stories of Success. Today we have Nick Power, CTO of Cubic Telecom. Over 26 years experience in IoT, connected devices, finance and educational software experience. Absolutely delighted to get you on board. I know you've been crazy busy over the last...
I think we've talked about this a few years ago, did we?
We talked a few years ago.
Yeah, we did, yeah. So finally got around to it.
Finally got to speak to you, delighted to have you on board. And for today anyway, it's really about history, going back down memory lane. So love to just get to know more about yourself. And I know, especially with people, CTOs within the industry, you might get to see a glimpse of you here and there, and obviously winning amazing awards and doing some really great stuff, building amazing technology. So it's great to actually just sit down and talk to you. Cool. For today, just the first question and what I'd like to ask you then is, what got you into IoT, or what got you into software and technology? What was your earliest memory?
Earliest memory was probably 9 or 10, maybe 11. It was a good friend of mine I grew up with, and he was into computers. And he was one of the first guys in our parish nearly to have a computer. Yeah. His mum was an accountant, and she had like proper business computers as well, and she had one in her house.
So were they like IBM?
Olivetti's. She had an Olivetti. Everyone remembers them. Like we're talking the 80s, right? So and we used to play around with. He had a Spectrum 16K or something like that, and then he got a Spectrum 48K. And I used to go down to his house, and I used to spend, kind of a week down there. We'd just be playing around with computers, we'd play games, we'd be messing around with stuff, trying to do bits of coding and things like that.
Brilliant.
And that was my first experience when I kind of got hooked. And then I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I was 17, my final year in school. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea. I knew I was going to go to college. I wanted to go to college. But didn't know what I wanted to do. And then my careers teacher, Mr. O'Sullivan, I remember his first name, he changed my career. He said to me, all your aptitudes leaning towards IT, so you should do that. I said, right. So I've never forgotten for it,
Yeah, no, that's class. That's class to have that story, especially because that's it. I don't want to give you an age, right? But it was the early days of obviously computers and everything that you're doing. What was probably 91, 92.
So it was I went to college in 93, graduated in 97. Then I went straight into moved to Dublin. I'm originally from Wexford. Moved up to Dublin, started in 97. When the internet was really only taking off, starting to come into the .com bubble.
It wasn't going to catch though, wasn't it? That's what never going to catch.
Yeah. Like, like it was all dial-up back then, and websites. And, mostly I was working on financial systems, so it was still all
I'd say you
things
still
like
can remember that sound.
You
still remember the dial-up sound? I'd say you can still remember
I do,
it. It's still there.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And so I've seen the evolution of the industry, and I've gone through booms and busts I went to the TechTalks bubble, the 2008 crash, the employer markets, all the swings and roundabouts there. So been through it all.
Cool. And so just to bring it back then, so with choosing the college course, obviously you said Mr. O'Sullivan, and then you went in and started and got going, you got the course. So when you came up to Dublin, can you remember your first job in IT? I don't know how if you remember how you got it, but you remember what was that?
I remember I graduated from Waterford, and then I took 2 or 3 months off, took the summer off. I was just kind of labouring on the farm next door to me, and just kind of enjoying the summer. And then I applied for a couple of jobs. I was applying for lots of jobs and I was getting nowhere. And then First National Bank Building Society, they became First Active Bank, and then they were bought by Ulster Bank. They're no longer in existence. They asked me to come to Dublin for an interview, and I remember going up on the train a couple of times for interviews with them, and they offered me a job, took a chance. Brilliant. And never looked back.
Brilliant. And then extending then onto that into your career, because I know, as I said, we spoke about the different industries that you've worked in. So can you talk a little bit about your journey then from finance and then into kind of education, and then
Funny
us through your
enough,
career?
when I was in First National, First Active, as it became, I came in as a graduate, right? And we were working on teller systems. So, you go into a bank, the teller is there, they have a computer system. So it's all these branch systems. You want to get a mortgage, that's what we were building. We were writing it all in Power Builder and Sybase and SQL Server and stuff. Well, SQL Server and Power Builder. And I was working on the Y2K project and the Euro project at the time.
Yeah.
And there was quite a lot of, so it was a kind of intense kind of time. We had a pretty pressing deadline to hit, right, which you couldn't miss, right? Yeah. And then some of the team quit, some of the senior people in the team quit. So they just moved on to different roles, whatever, with different jobs. And I was thrown at the deep end. And I kind of stepped up and led the team. I was a graduate
As
of
the
college
Irish
for a
would
year
say,
and a half.
sink or swim.
Sink or swim, right? When I look back on it, it was crazy. You're letting a guy who's a year and a half out of college kind of run this team. And and that was my foray into leadership. And more tech leadership. I wasn't managing anybody or anything like that.
Yeah.
But we delivered the projects, both of them, the Y2K and the Euro project. And then I moved on. Went to Ulster Bank, was doing capital markets, so that was more, investment stuff, money market desks and corporate deposit trading. I was writing systems for them. And then I went into my first foray into American multinationals, which is a lot of my career has been, right? Yeah. So.
And how did you feel the change? Because I spoke to a lot of people and they said, the scalable software, so what you were doing was quite localized, or maybe, and then to go into that scale.
Yeah, so
that there's been that change.
Most of that was internal systems, right? Bought in the two banks, and then I went into Fidelity Investments, and I flitted around various groups in there, building systems to start getting into web development and all then. Because a lot of what I was doing was kind of either back-end or UI based, but Windows based development, right? Started getting into web development there. Again, it was all internal systems. So I was doing a lot of security products and stuff like that. Got into architecture there. Got a really good grounding, did a bit of product, learned a lot about product management stuff there as well. And that was a fantastic company to work for that investments. They have a big operation here in Dublin. Then I left them because I wanted to get commercial software. Right? So I wanted to get customer facing software experience. I went to an insurance company down in Carlow called Unum. They were offering that. They were also offering a leadership position. Right? So I was doing a lot of architecture and tech leadership, but not actually management of people. Yeah. And I was probably a little bit reluctant at the management of people because even Fidelity were pushing me into that for a while, and I was like, no, I want to concentrate on the tech, and be more of a tech leader.
Still like being on the tools.
Yeah, well, I don't get to do any of it now, right?
At that time,
for a number of years, at that time, and so then I got that job done there. I wasn't there very long, so a year and a half or something like that, but it did get me into leadership. I was on the kind of Irish leadership team as well, so we're doing some strategy and things like that for how we grow the site here in Carlow. And that was an interesting experience. But then I got into. And
how did you find then? Obviously, a lot of the companies that are here in Ireland, we have multiple locations, and how did you find that transition then of working with maybe leadership teams here, leadership teams in other locations? How did that
because I was 9 years in Fidelity Investments. They were American multinational.
Of course.
A year and a half in Unum. So it's 10.5 years working with both people in India, people in the US, in various locations. Kind of just, it was part of the course, and then I've been in my American multinationals most of my career now. I've spent a good amount of time in Verizon as well. So that was that transition was quite easy. I think for most Irish people that work in tech, even as a graduate, a lot of times you'll go into jobs that are like that. Right?
Of course,
so,
of course. And how did you so? If we're looking at them, we're talking about the graduates and kind of future graduates. So, obviously being a CTO, but you've been through that journey. You've been an engineer to an architect, to leadership hands-on, to they say leadership hands-off. So, if you were looking at a graduate coming through today, what would your advice to be to them? Because you're obviously one of the original that came through. and now it's a different ecosystem to what it was back then. So how do you stand out from the crowd where you were probably, not one of the only people, but the early?
I'd say prior to graduate, right? Let's go back a little bit before you go into a computer science degree or course.
Yeah.
Right. Make sure that you have a passion for it. Some people, there's a very high dropout rate in those courses.
Okay.
If I look back on my time, I'd say 50% made it. And I even look at some family members and stuff like that went into it, and just didn't. They don't have a passion for it.
Yeah.
You need
Maybe it was the buzzword at the time.
Buzzword at the time, job security, or there's plenty of work in it. There's decent wages in it too, and some people go, "Oh, that's what I'll do," because that's what everyone should do.
Yeah.
But you need to have an aptitude for it, and you need to have a passion for it first.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. But then, if you do, when you get through college and you're coming out, it's what I would say is it's very hard when a CV goes in. Sometimes employers wrongly, I think, look at the college you go to in a lot of cases, right? Yeah. Maybe they should look more at the course you're doing rather than the university or college you're going to.
Great.
But you're just a number. Like there's a whole lot of CVs coming for grad programs, and you've got to try and figure out how you stand out. So your college project is one area, and making sure it's interesting enough, and you've done a decent write up in there in your CV of what you actually did, so capture the essence of it, but also show your aptitude for other things outside of just your college course, right? Yeah. That you do tinker with stuff in the.
So maybe on GitHub or
things like that.
Contributing to the community.
Yeah, I've written this small app, or I've done this little open source thing, or that type of stuff stands out. When I look at that, I go, right, well, I've seen 10 CVs today. I've looked at 10 projects, but this guy here or this guy here plays around. Has done open source stuff that's on GitHub. It does
it's the passion you're trying.
Builds a few games or something like that. You know what I mean? Because that's how you stand out as a graduate, right? Yeah. It's obviously a little different when you get in and you get experience, and it's more on the experience. Okay. It is that way, and then really, and this is on the other side of it, and this is more for companies. It's like, there are companies that are good at graduate programs, and there's lots that are not. So they get graduates in, stick them in a team, and then do work, right?
And what are they going to be doing?
But really, when you're bringing graduates in, you've got to be fair to them, and you've got to give them a good grounding in their career. And I think that a lot of companies don't do that. So I've seen.
What would that look like for you then?
So I've seen a few models of it. Fidelity Investments had a great one. So they used to. It was actually. They would take in 20 or 30 people every year. You'd actually do a college course, and at the end of it, you come out with a certification or a diploma or something. That's VTech or ETech.
Yeah.
Actual accreditation certified, right? So it was like a postgraduate course they did, and that was the investment they did. And so you would do lots of projects. They'd give you a small project, and then they put you on teams and put you into big projects. And some of those projects actually went on to be the basis of products that we created and put in front of people and customers.
Brilliant.
That was one way of doing it in Fleetmatics / Verizon Connect, where I was before I joined here. We had a grad program as well. In my area, I used to take the graduates in. We'd take in about 5 a year, and what we would do is I'd have a manager that would run this program for me. And what we'd do is we'd say, we're not going to put you all in as software developers, or we're going to put one of you as a software developer, one is a QA automation engineer, one is a build engineer, one is a performance tester, and one is something else, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And then in 3 months, you're going to swap. You're going to do a different role. And in another 3 months, you're going to do a different role. And you'll do that for a year. So every quarter, you're going to do one. And then you can get to choose at the end, what's your preference? Do you like software coding? Do you like automation testing? Do you like DevOps? Do you like build engineering? And then we would also, in conjunction with the managers, would look at what we think is your best role as well.
Yeah. But you can go from technical to non-technical as well. Like maybe go into the product life cycle or
project management.
You know, you might, as you said,
companies could do that.
You might have that passion. you know, for coding, or maybe you go through the college system and you're like, well, on delivering projects, I prefer to be the project manager, or I prefer to be. It's kind of like maybe the apprentice sort of a way of doing it, isn't it? Where you're trying so many different types.
Our retention went up in graduates, because graduates generally 2 years they're gone really. And there's some reasons for that. I remember when I was in college, one of my lecturers saying that don't stay more than 2 years in your first job, right? You know, sometimes it's to build your wage up, sometimes it's to get promotions, you know,
experience in other
areas and stuff like that. Therefore, if you don't give them a good grounding, they will be gone in 2 years, right? But if you give them quite a bit of varied expertise in certain areas, they'll become a lot more rounded. And you know, we had really good results with some of those graduates. Some of them are still there. You know, I took on a number of years ago.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And then that leads me back into, because you were saying about the 2 year thing, with the graduates, they come in maybe and, you know, they get a good basis and then they head off to pastures new somewhere else. So like for me then it's about understanding the leader, especially in this series. So in the actual people that we're seeing and from data that we're looking at, is people with experience and not experience are normally spending 24 to 36 months, probably even less than that on average in companies now. Seems to be a lot of churn. So how do you see, and I don't know if like the traditional leader, so why not just yourself, because I know you've been in other companies and different experiences as a leader in different projects, but I know traditionally, if I'm looking at, you know, other kind of CTOs or people that are in a really senior position, may have spent, you know, 15, 20 years within that same company, and they've organically maybe they organically see the ladder, they organically see what will get them to the next level of where they want to go in their career. So like if you're somebody maybe with, you know, you're doing an average 2 years in a company, 3 years in a company, how do you then stand out as a leader, or how, like, you know, to make that jump? Because I see a lot of people where they get the technical lead or, you know, a manager, but they find it very difficult then to make that next jump into, you know, a CTO or a director level and stuff like that, you know.
So a few things on that, right? I can talk about my own experiences. How long I stayed in various jobs, and but what I will say is, if you're getting 2 to 3 years out of an engineer, it's actually pretty good, right? In this market, right? Now the market's gone, we're back into an employer market again. So I was talking about earlier about the employee versus employer. So when I first came out, it was employees market, really started off that way. .com bubble, employees market, dictated the wages, all that kind of stuff. There was shortage of roles. Bubble burst, employers market. Then it started to slowly ramp back up into employees market again. 2008 financial crash, employers market again. And then we went on, probably from 2010 onwards, we went on probably the highest employee market ever, right? We got all the way up through COVID. It went mad, like it just went crazy. The year after COVID was even worse. You know, the wages went through the roof, you know, couldn't retain staff.
I know being a recruiter. So
you know this, right? And now it's kind of gone back, it's gone back down again to employers market again. Right?
Agreed.
But generally, if you're getting 2 to 3 years out of an engineer, you're doing well. And if you can try and retain them more, we see a lot of times that, you know, maybe 1 to 2 years or maybe the 2 to 3 year mark is where people start moving on the most. You see attrition is highest in those categories, in engineering. That's the first thing. For me, I did.
Any reason behind that you'd see, or is it just that the build has been done, it's gone into kind of maintenance?
No, it's not that. It's just people get itchy, they want a promo, they want a pay rise, you know, they want their career to progress. If I look at my own career, I did 2 years in the first bank, 2 years in the second, right? And I was always looking for something different. I wanted to progress up a little bit more. I then went into Fidelity Investments, I did 9 years there. That's when I started to build a career. So if you put roots down for a while, then you can, I got into architecture, was doing that. I was a tech architect / product architect for a number of years there. So built that up. I did 1.5 years then in Unum. Did a bit of management, but I went into HMH then to get SaaS experience. Did 2 years there. And then I went to Fleetmatic / Verizon Connect and did 10 years there.
That was a journey, like, because you went from startup into
and that was
and then scaling.
That was different, right? Because but I had a lot of experience behind me at that stage. I didn't come into a startup at the very beginning. you know, when I was in the beginning of my career and go right up.
Yeah.
So it was a varied career, but I went on that journey with them and all the acquisitions we did and getting acquired ourselves, right? But you do have to put roots down for a while if you really want to, you know.
So you were at that stage, you knew this could be a 5-10 year journey, and you were ready to go on that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, and there was 2 companies that really shaped my career, and they were the ones that I did the 9 and the 10 years.
Yeah.
The others had, don't get me wrong, the others did shape my career as well, but they were smaller stints, and I was always looking for the next stepping stone, right? So there were stepping stones to something bigger. Okay.
And then if we're talking about that leader or that person, as you're saying, if you eventually have to kind of say, right, I'm going to have to put roots in a company and stay there for a long time. When making that decision, and we don't need to talk about companies or different ways within those companies, like what is it that you think people are looking for when they want to go on that journey? Is it the people, the culture, the technology? Like obviously it's touching on everything
it's
there.
Hard. It's hard to pinpoint that because every company, like every person's preferences are different. So Cubic may suit some people, it may not suit others.
Of course.
Previous company may suit, them better, right?
Yeah.
It really depends on the culture, the style, the product, sometimes as well, the type of customer you're dealing with. It really depends, and there's all sorts in this world, right? So and everyone has a different management style, a different leadership style, different style of communication, all that. Yeah. There's so many factors, and potentially you can only do your best. You can do a general thing. We do a pulse survey here. It's like a employee satisfaction. And we've done a satisfaction survey, and we've done it in multiple other companies as well.
Yeah.
You will always have outliers with that. You try and improve the lot of everybody, but it won't satisfy everyone. Of course, some people it's not for them, or it's not for them for that point of their career. They've gone to a certain level and they need to move on to the next stage. Right?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, no.
Sometimes people are in big companies and they go into smaller companies and they get a bigger role, and it's perfect for them. They take what they've learned from the big company and bring it in.
So it's just not one size fits all. It's the time of your journey. It's about, sometimes you look back and 10 years is gone.
If we could crack that, what you're asking, right? Have a brilliant business, right? And I think every people team or every HR team struggles with that too, right? Trying to figure out what is the sweet spot. I think we do quite well here in Cubic.
Yeah, great.
Our attrition's quite low.
Yeah.
We have a decent vibe around the office.
Beautiful office space.
Yeah, it's a nice office space. They moved in last year, so last summer. Yeah, so
it's definitely really good. Cool.
Yeah.
So
free food.
Free food. There you go. There we go. Yeah. Now, because I seen that brought me back to having the conversation with you, Nick. Because I've seen your profile, across all various platforms has grown a lot. But for me, it was great to actually see your leadership team. I've seen you've had little episodes of who your leaders are, and I think it's changing that. Like for me, technology, like if you were to see what's happening in real life in technology, there'd be cranes everywhere, and the place would be busy, and you just hear the name, you're like Cubic Telecom, and people are like, what do they do? And for me, I just think you're insightful. The videos are good to get to know who the leadership team, who the people are that you're going to come up for. So that was really good. But it leads back then to, for me, is who would be the leader then that inspires you or has inspired you? It doesn't need to be technical. It could be anybody throughout your life. It could be multiple people, but like who would be a leader that you look at and say, they inspired me?
That I work with, or
just in general, just if there's someone that you work with, you want to draw their name out, that's great.
Yeah, or a couple of people. Single anyway. I do like entrepreneurial kind of innovative leaders, right? And, I kind of get attracted to them. That's in my latter half of my career. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek. I don't know if you know.
Yeah, brilliant.
I think his stuff is quite on the money for me, and sits with my values, my principles.
It's very simple in how he says it as well. It's
It's just a different way of thinking about stuff. And he would be someone. I've read his book, and I kind of listen to some of his videos on LinkedIn a lot and share. I see some of my posts. I kind of share them and give my thoughts on it, right? As well. So
cool. Yeah. Brilliant. And at the moment, from moving, as you said, from technical and into leadership now, like what is the most enjoyable part of your role Cubic currently? Not just one thing. It can be
Yeah, it was one of the
multiple,
reasons why
it's
I
a hard
came
question, I
here.
know.
No, it's one of the reasons why I came here was like I worked in a big, large multinational, right? And even though I had quite a senior role there, and I could make change, it was slow and a bit bureaucratic, right? Whereas in Cubic, it's small, I make change very quickly, I can see the effects of it, you know, I can tweak it, move on, learn, do a bit more. And that's the key thing in small companies, is that you can have a bigger effect in a shorter time frame.
Influence.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Excellent. So, and then leading into the final question that I have, you probably said it there about Simon already, but is there any particular like podcast or books that like was a light bulb moment for you that you read, or you know, that you've seen that you recommend to people to say, listen, have a read of this?
I recommend this book to everybody. It's called Why Should Anyone Be Led By You? It's great. It's about authentic leadership. It's about being yourself as a leader when you become a manager. Sometimes become a manager for the first time, you start copying the managers around you or your boss or whatever, and like people see through that a little bit. You have to be authentic and do your own thing. And this book is all about it. It has practical examples from people that it's interviewed. So it's worth a read.
Brilliant.
And podcasts, I listen to Deb McWilliams. I like a bit of economics kind of stuff. He explains it in quite a simple way, and that even I can understand. Right? I like that. I listen to this podcast regularly.
Might look